Admiral Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of Kepler Station and watched the enemy ships fill the stars. There were so many of them that they blocked out the light from distant suns. The alien fleet looked like a swarm of giant insects made of metal and flesh. Each ship was bigger than 3 human destroyers put together. "How many are there?" she asked her second-in-command. "Over 300, Admiral," came the reply. "Maybe more hiding behind the big ones." Lisa felt her stomach drop. Kepler Station had only 12 defense platforms and maybe 20 fighter ships that still worked. The rest had been destroyed in the past 3 weeks of fighting. The Zephyrians had been hitting human colonies one by one, and now they were here for the final blow. The communication system crackled to life. "Admiral, this is Captain Jake Morrison in the fighter bay. My pilots are ready to launch. We have 18 ships that can fly and fight." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 18 fighters against 300 alien warships. It was like sending children to fight dragons. But they had no choice. If Kepler Station fell, the Zephyrians would control this entire part of space. "Launch when ready, Captain Morrison," she said. "Give them hell." Down in the fighter bay, Jake Morrison climbed into his cockpit. Around him, 17 other pilots did the same. Some of them were barely 20 years old. Others had gray hair and shaking hands. They all knew this was probably their last flight. "Listen up, people," Jake said over the radio. "We are not going out there to win. We are going out there to buy time. Every minute we keep those alien ships busy is another minute for the civilians to escape." Lieutenant Amy Brooks checked her weapons one more time. She had joined the fleet 6 months ago, fresh from the academy. She never thought she would die so far from Earth. But she was ready to fight. All fighters, this is Morrison. Launch in 3, 2, 1, mark. The fighter bay doors opened, and 18 small ships flew out into the darkness. Behind them, Kepler Station looked like a tiny dot of light. Ahead of them, the alien fleet waited like a wall of death. Back on the station, Communications Officer Beth Carter sat at her post sending out distress calls. She had been sending the same message for hours, but no one answered. All the human fleets were too far away or already destroyed. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Kepler Station. We are under attack by Zephyrian forces. Request immediate assistance. Repeat, we need help now." The only answer was static. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked in his laboratory 3 decks below the bridge. Even as the station shook from enemy fire, he studied the alien technology they had captured. The Zephyrian ships were not built like human ships. They were grown, like plants or animals. The metal was alive in some way that human science did not understand. "Fascinating," he muttered as he looked at a piece of alien hull under his microscope. "The material repairs itself. No wonder their ships are so hard to destroy." Another explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered, and Kevin had to grab his desk to keep from falling. The enemy was getting closer. On the bridge, Admiral Martinez watched the battle outside. Captain Morrison and his fighters were doing their best, but they were like mosquitoes attacking elephants. The alien ships barely seemed to notice them. Their biomechanical hulls shrugged off human weapons like they were toys. "Admiral," said her tactical officer, "the outer shields are down to 30%. We cannot take much more of this." Lisa nodded. She had made the hard choice already. The civilians came first. Begin evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods and transport ships. Ambassador Claire Johnson hurried through the corridors with a group of diplomats and civilians. She had come to Kepler Station to negotiate peace with the Zephyrians. That seemed like a joke now. The aliens did not want peace. They wanted to wipe out every human in the galaxy. "This way, Ambassador," said Security Chief Dana Phillips. "The transport ships are in Bay 7. Claire looked back at the station that had been her home for 3 months. Soon it would be nothing but wreckage floating in space. How did it come to this? She whispered. Chief Engineer Matt Coleman ran through the maintenance tunnels with his repair teams. Sparks flew from damaged power lines, and smoke filled the air. The station's hull was breaking apart under the alien bombardment. Reroute power from sections C and D, he shouted over the noise. We need to keep the main shields up for 10 more minutes. Chief, the power grid cannot handle it, one of his engineers replied. If we push it too hard, the whole system will collapse. Then we push it anyway, Matt said. Those people need time to escape. The station's AI, which everyone called Oracle, spoke through the intercom system. Its voice was calm and mechanical, even as the station died around it. Attention all personnel. Hull breach on Deck 15. Emergency bulkheads are sealed. Estimated time until total shield failure. 8 minutes, 37 seconds. Outside, the Zephyrian fleet moved closer. Their ships looked like a mix of machine and living creature. Some had tentacles that writhed in the vacuum of space. Others had surfaces that pulsed like beating hearts. At the center of the fleet was the largest ship of all, a monster that dwarfed everything around it. War Commander Thekval stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human station burn. His species had conquered 47 worlds and destroyed 16 different alien races. Humans would be number 17. The prey fights well, he said in his alien language. But they are still just prey. His mind shepherds, the psychic warriors of his species, reached out with their thoughts. They touched the human ships and began to take control. One by one, human fighters turned their weapons on their own fleet. Captain Morrison saw his squadron falling apart. Brooks, what are you doing? You are firing on our own ships. Lieutenant Brooks tried to answer, but her mind was not her own anymore. Her hands moved without her control, and her fighter spun around to attack Morrison's ship. All units, we have been compromised, Morrison said. Some of our people are under alien control. Be ready to defend yourselves against your own wingmen. The situation was hopeless, but the human fighters kept fighting. They had nowhere to run and no chance of winning. All they could do was buy time and hope it was enough. On Kepler Station, the last transport ship undocked from the station. Ambassador Johnson watched through a porthole as the station grew smaller behind them. Explosions lit up its hull like deadly fireworks. Admiral Martinez remained on the bridge with a skeleton crew. They would stay until the end, making sure every civilian escaped. It was the way of the human fleet. Officers went down with their ships. Admiral, Beth Carter said, the last transport is away. All civilians are safe, Lisa nodded. Now they could focus on fighting, not to win, because that was impossible, but to make the aliens pay for every meter of space they took. Captain Jake Morrison pushed his fighter to its limits as he dodged alien fire. The space around him was filled with deadly energy beams that could cut through steel like paper. His squadron was down to 8 ships, and half of those were damaged. Tony, watch your 6, he shouted into his radio. Sergeant Tony Garcia rolled his fighter just as an alien beam missed him by inches. The heat from the blast made his cockpit temperature spike. Sweat ran down his face as he returned fire with his plasma cannons. The shots hit an alien ship, but barely scratched its living hull. These things are too tough, Tony said. Our weapons are not doing enough damage. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was fighting for control of her own mind. The alien mind shepherds had tried to take her over, but she was fighting back. Her head felt like it was splitting in two. One part of her wanted to attack the human ships. The other part screamed at her to resist. I can fight it, she whispered. Through gritted teeth, I can fight it. She turned her fighter away from Morrison and fired at the nearest alien ship instead. The effort made her nose bleed, But she stayed in control of her own mind. On Kepler Station, Chief Engineer Matt Coleman worked in the main power room. The walls around him were cracked, and coolant leaked from broken pipes. The station's power core was running at dangerous levels, but he needed every bit of energy to keep the shields working. "Chief, core temperature is in the red zone," his assistant said. "If it overheats, the whole station could explode." "Not yet," Matt replied, adjusting the controls with steady hands. "We need 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes." The station shook as another alien weapon hit the shields. Sparks flew from control panels, and the lights went out for a few seconds. When they came back on, Matt saw that one of his engineers was hurt. A piece of metal had cut his arm. "Get him to the medical bay," Matt ordered. "I can handle this alone." Security. Chief Donna Phillips ran through the corridors, checking each section. Most of the station was empty now, but she needed to make sure no one was left behind. Her security teams had done a good job getting people to safety, but there were always a few who hid or got lost. "Section 12 is clear," she reported over her radio, moving to Section 13. As she turned a corner, she found Dr. Kevin Walsh still in his laboratory. He was looking at alien technology through his microscope, completely focused on his work. "Doctor, you need to leave now," Dana sighed. "The station is about to fall apart." Kevin looked up at her with wild eyes. "I almost have it figured out. The way their biometal works. If I can understand it, maybe we can find the weakness. Doctor, there is no time. We have to go." Kevin grabbed his research notes and followed Dana toward the evacuation area. Behind them, his lab equipment exploded as the station's hull cracked open. Outside, the Zephyrian fleet was closing in for the kill. War Commander Thek Val could taste victory. The human defenders were almost finished. Soon, this sector of space would belong to the collective. "Deploy the bone crushers," he ordered his crew. "Finish the station quickly. I want to move on to the next human world before their reinforcements arrive." The bone crushers were the most feared weapons in the Zephyrian fleet. They were living missiles that could think and adapt. Once they locked onto a target, nothing could stop them. The alien ships launched dozens of them toward Kepler Station. Admiral Martinez watched the new threat approaching on her tactical display. The missiles looked like flying serpents with teeth and claws. They moved through space like they were swimming through water. "Point defense systems, target those missiles," she ordered. The station's automated guns opened fire, but the bone crushers were too smart. They twisted and turned through the defensive fire like they were dancing. Most of them made it through and slammed into the station's hull. The impact threw everyone to the floor. Whole sections of the station were torn open, and atmosphere rushed out into space. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut to prevent total decompression, but the damage was severe. Hull breaches on decks 4, 7, 9, and 12. Oracle reported in its calm voice. Structural integrity at 47%. And falling. Chief Coleman struggled to his feet in the power room. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, but he kept working. The power core was making dangerous noises, but he could not let it fail yet. "Come on, old girl," he whispered to the machinery. "Just a little longer." Captain Morrison and his remaining fighters were still fighting, but they knew the end was near. The alien fleet had them surrounded, and more mind shepherds were trying to take control of their ships. "Morrison to Kepler Station," he said over the radio. "We are running out of options up here. How much more time do you need?" "All transports are clear," Admiral Martinez replied. "You can break off the attack." "Negative, Admiral. We will keep fighting until the end. It is what we signed up for." Morrison looked at his fuel gauge and weapon status. Both were almost empty. Around him, the stars were blocked out by alien ships. It was like being trapped in a metal cave. Sergeant Garcia's fighter was hit by an alien beam. His ship spun out of control, and he could not regain stability. "Jake, my ship is dead. Engines are gone. Eject, Tony. Get out of there." "Negative. I still have weapons. I am going to ram one of these ugly bugs." Garcia pointed his fighter at the nearest alien ship and pushed his throttle to maximum. His damaged engines gave him just enough speed. He crashed into the alien vessel's hull, and both ships exploded in a ball of fire. "Tony!" Morrison shouted, but there was no answer. Lieutenant Brooks was fighting 3 alien ships at once. Her fighter was faster than theirs, but they had better weapons. She used every trick she had learned in training, rolling and diving through their fire. "Amy, get out of there," Morrison called. "You are outnumbered." "I can handle it," she replied, but her voice was strained. She was tired, and the mind shepherds were trying to get into her head again. One of the alien ships got behind her, fired. A beam hit her fighter's wing and sent her spinning. She tried to recover, but her controls were damaged. "Ejecting," she said, and pulled the emergency handle. Her seat shot out of the cockpit just before her fighter exploded. Morrison was down to 3 ships now, including his own. The alien fleet was so close that he could see details on their hulls. Some of the ships had eyes that followed his movement. Others had mouths that opened and closed like they were trying to eat him. On Kepler Station, Admiral Martinez made her final log entry. "This is Admiral Lisa Martinez, commanding officer of Kepler Station. Today, we make our last stand against the Zephyrian Collective. We have saved the civilians, and our fighters have fought with honor. If anyone finds this log, remember that. We did not go quietly. We fought until the end." The station's shields finally failed. Without protection, the alien weapons tore through the hull like it was made of paper. Sections of the station broke away and drifted into Space War Commander. Vekval watched the human station die and felt satisfaction. Another victory for the collective. Another step toward controlling this galaxy. Soon, there would be no more humans left to resist. "Prepare to board the station," he ordered. "I want to see what technology they have. Then we will move on to their next colony." The Devourer of Worlds, his massive flagship, moved closer to the dying station. Its tentacles reached out like the arms of a giant squid, ready to grab the wreckage. Captain Morrison made one last attack run. His fighter was damaged and running on fumes, but he would not give up. He aimed for the alien flagship and fired his remaining missiles. The weapons hit the Devourer of Worlds, but did no damage. The ship's living hull absorbed the explosions like they were nothing. Morrison's fighter was caught in the ship's tentacles and crushed like an egg. "This is the end of the line," Admiral Martinez said to her crew. "It has been an honor serving with you all." The alien fleet surrounded the broken station, ready to finish what they had started. In the distance, the transport ships carrying the civilians were getting away, but they were too slow. The aliens would catch them soon. Just as War Commander Vekval prepared to give the final order, something impossible happened. His sensors detected new contacts approaching from deep space. Ships that should not exist were moving toward the battlefield at incredible speed, but it was too late to matter. The battle was over, and the humans had lost. Communications Officer Beth Carter stared at her console in disbelief. The signal that appeared on her screen should not exist. It was human, but stronger than anything she had ever seen. The power levels were impossible. "Admiral," she called. Out, her voice shaking. "I am picking up a transmission. It is ... It is from a human fleet." Admiral Lisa Martinez looked up from her damage reports. The bridge around her was filled with smoke and sparks. Half her crew was dead or wounded. "That is impossible, Beth. There are no human fleets in this sector." "Ma'am, you need to hear this," Beth said. She put the signal on the main speakers. Calm male voice filled the bridge. "This is Captain Carl Davis of the UEF Retribution, flagship of the Terran Defense Fleet. Kepler Station, please respond." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. The UEF had been disbanded 20 years ago, and she had never heard of any ship called the Retribution. "Put me through to them." "Captain Davis, this is Admiral Martinez. I do not know who you are, but we are under attack by a massive Zephyrian fleet. Our defenses are failing." There was a pause before the voice came back. "Admiral, hold your position. Relief is incoming. Estimated arrival time, 4 minutes. 4 minutes?" Lisa looked at her tactical display. "Captain, there are over 300 enemy ships here. What kind of force are you bringing?" "Sufficient," was all Captain Davis said. Dr. Kevin Walsh looked up from his damaged equipment in the science bay. Even with the station falling apart around him, he was fascinated by the sensor readings. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The energy signatures are off the charts." He called up to the bridge. "Admiral, whatever is coming our way, it is using technology we do not have. The power output is 10 times stronger than our biggest battleships." On the other side of the battlefield, War Commander Thekval studied his own sensors. The approaching ships were still too far away to see clearly, but their energy patterns were unlike anything in the collective's databases. They seemed to be bending space around them as they moved. "What are these new ships?" he asked his science officer. The alien creature worked at its biomechanical console. "Unknown, War Commander. The readings do not match any known human technology. They appear to be using some form of space-time manipulation." Thekval felt something he rarely experienced: uncertainty. The collective had fought humans for months. They knew their technology and their capabilities. These new ships were something different. "Prepare the fleet for combat," he ordered. "If the humans have new weapons, we will destroy them like all the others." Back near the dying Kepler station, a few surviving human fighters watched in amazement as space itself began to change. The stars seemed to bend and twist, and the darkness took on a strange shimmer. Lieutenant Amy Brooks floated in her ejection seat, her fighter destroyed. Through her helmet visor, she could see something incredible happening. The empty space between the stars was rippling like water. "What is that?" she whispered. Captain Morrison was down to his last fighter, barely keeping it together with emergency. "Power." He saw the same thing Amy did, and his trained pilot eyes could not make sense of it. Space did not behave like that. It was solid, empty, unchanging. But now it moved like liquid, and something huge was pushing through it. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Carl Davis watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The new ships were performing perfectly. 20 years of secret development had led to this moment. "Admiral Sullivan," he said to the woman standing beside him, "your fleet is ready for combat." Admiral Kate Sullivan nodded. She commanded the most advanced fleet in human history, and no one outside of Earth's inner circle knew it existed. The Terran Defense Fleet had been built in hidden shipyards beyond the edge of the solar system. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan." She broadcast to her fleet, "Prepare for combat deployment. Show them what humanity is really capable of." The space around Kepler Station began to tear open like fabric. Through the rifts came shapes that defied description. The ships were huge, but they seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. They flickered in and out of normal space, their hulls shimmering with impossible colors. Dr. Walsh watched his instruments go crazy. "The readings are off the scale," he reported. "These ships are not entirely in our reality. They exist partially in some other dimension." One by one, the ships of the Terran Defense Fleet emerged from folded space. There were dozens of them, each one larger than the biggest Zephyrian vessel. Their hulls were smooth and dark, and they moved without any visible engines or exhaust. Lead ship, the UEF Retribution, was a monster. It was 3 kilometers long and covered in weapons that looked like they were made of pure energy. As it moved, space bent around it like it was too heavy for reality to hold. War Commander Dick Fall stared at the human fleet and felt something his species had not experienced in 1,000 years. Fear. The ships before him were beyond anything the collective had ever encountered. They moved through space like gods, bending the laws of physics to their will. How is this possible? He asked his science officer. Unknown, War Commander. Our sensors cannot get accurate readings. The ships seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The biomechanical systems of the Zephyrian fleet began to show signs of distress. The organic components of their ships were reacting to the energy fields given off by the human vessels. Some of the alien ships started to shiver and shake, their living hulls trying to escape from something that hurt them. Captain Davis opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. His voice was calm and cold. Attention, Zephyrian forces. You are trespassing. In human space, withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Thekvold bristled at the demand. The collective had never retreated from any battle. Human captain, you are outnumbered 3-1. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. There was a pause before Davis responded. You misunderstand the situation, War Commander. You are not outnumbered. You are outmatched. Admiral Sullivan gave the order to her fleet. All ships, assume battle formation. Prepare quantum disruptors for firing. The human ships moved into position with grace that seemed impossible for such massive vessels. They flowed through space like dancers, their hulls' phases shifting between dimensions. The Zephyrian fleet tried to track them, but their targeting systems could not lock onto ships that were not entirely there. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes, the tactical officer aboard the Retribution, studied the enemy fleet on his display. Admiral, I count 317 enemy vessels. They are moving to attack formation. Let them come, Admiral Sullivan replied. Weapons officer. Lewis, are the quantum disruptors ready? Weapons officer Sandra Lewis checked her console. The weapons she controlled could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. They were the most destructive force humanity had ever created. All weapons ready, Admiral? On the dying Kepler station, Admiral Martinez watched the two fleets face each other. The human ships were outnumbered, but they looked like they came from the future. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic. Beth, are you recording this? She asked. Yes, Admiral. Every second of it. Good. Humanity needs to see what happens next. The Zephyrian fleet began to move forward, their biomechanical ships writhing through space like living things. They had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed countless enemies. They were confident in their victory, but the human ships did not move to meet them. They simply waited, their hulls shimmering with otherworldly energy. To the aliens, it looked like the humans were afraid to fight. War Commander Thekval smiled. With his alien features, they are cowards after all. Attack. Destroy them all. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with every weapon they had. Plasma beams, biomissiles, and psychic attacks filled the space between the two fleets. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet, but when the weapons reached the human ships, something impossible happened. The attacks passed right through them, like they were not there. The human vessels flickered and phased, existing in dimensions where the alien weapons could not touch them. Impossible, Thekval whispered. Nothing can phase through our weapons. Captain Davis smiled on the bridge of the Retribution. Our turn, he said calmly. All ships, you are cleared to engage. Show them what 20 years of secret research has accomplished. The human fleet opened fire, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first quantum disruptor beam left the UEF retribution and crossed the space between the fleets in an instant. It was not like any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The beam looked like twisted starlight, bending reality around it as it moved. When it hit the first Zephyrian ship, the alien vessel simply stopped existing. There was no explosion, no debris, no wreckage. One moment the biomechanical cruiser was there, and the next moment there was only empty space. War Commander Vekval stared at the spot where his ship had been. What happened to the bone splitter? His science officer checked the sensors with trembling tentacles. Gone, War Commander. Completely gone. Not destroyed, ... erased. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the alien fleet's reaction. 20 years of hiding, 20 years of secret development, and now the galaxy would see what humanity had become. All ships, fire at will, she ordered. Target the largest vessels first. The Terran Defense Fleet opened fire with weapons that should not exist. Quantum disruptor beams lanced out from dozens of ships, each one capable of unmaking matter at the most basic level. The beams twisted through space like living things, seeking their targets with impossible accuracy. Captain Carl Davis watched the tactical display as alien ships vanished one by one. "It is working perfectly," he said to his crew. "The quantum field generators are stable, and the targeting systems are operating at peak efficiency." On the bridge of the dying Kepler station, Admiral Lisa Martinez watched through the viewports as the impossible battle unfolded. The human ships moved like ghosts, phasing in and out of normal space to avoid enemy fire. Their weapons reached out like the fingers of gods, touching alien vessels and removing them from existence. "Beth, are you getting this?" she asked her communications officer. Beth Carter nodded, her face pale with shock. "Recording everything, Admiral. Command is not going to believe this." Dr. Kevin Walsh stared at his sensor readings from the science bay. The energy patterns from the human fleet were beyond anything in his experience. "The ships are using some form of multi-dimensional technology," he reported. "They exist in our space and several others at the same time." The revelation hit him like a thunderbolt. Folded space technology. They have cracked the secret of dimensional manipulation. Lieutenant Amy Brooks floated in her ejection seat and watched the battle through her helmet visor. The human ships looked like angels of death, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Their hulls shimmered with colors that had no names, and they moved through space like it was their natural element. "How is this possible?" she whispered to herself. "Where did these ships come from?" The answer came from Captain Davis as he broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention all human personnel. This is the Terran Defense Fleet. We are the result of 20 years of secret development based on alien technology recovered from ancient crash sites in the Sol system." Admiral Martinez felt her jaw drop. Ancient alien technology? In our solar system? Davis continued his explanation as his fleet continued to erase Zephyrian ships from existence. The artifacts were discovered on Luna and in the asteroid belt. Dr. Nick Turner and his team have spent 2 decades reverse engineering the technology. What you see here is the result of their work. Dr. Turner, the brilliant scientist who had made it all possible, stood in the science section of the Retribution. He was a small man with wild gray hair and eyes that burned with intelligence. Around him, his team monitored the performance of their impossible weapons. Quantum disruptor. "Efficiency is at 97%, one of his assistants reported. "The dimensional phase generators are operating within normal parameters." Turner nodded with satisfaction. 20 years of work, and it all comes down to this moment. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity is not the weak species they thought we were. The Zephyrian fleet was in chaos. Their biomechanical ships were dying faster than they could react. The mind shepherds, their psychic warriors, tried to take control of the human vessels, but found their mental powers useless against technology that existed in multiple dimensions. The prey has become the predator, one of the mind shepherds reported to Vekvel. Their ships exist beyond our reach. We cannot touch them with our thoughts. War Commander Vekvel watched his fleet disappear and felt something the collective had never experienced: helplessness. For 1,000 years, they had been the apex predators of the galaxy. Now they faced an enemy that made them look like insects. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship, he ordered desperately. If we can destroy their command ship, perhaps the others will retreat. Every remaining Zephyrian vessel turned its weapons on the UEF Retribution. Plasma beams, biomissiles, and psychic attacks converged on the massive human ship. The assault was enough to crack a moon in half, but the Retribution simply phased out of normal space, and the attacks passed through empty air. When it phased back in, it was in a completely different position, and its quantum disruptors were already charging for another volley. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes smiled grimly at his tactical station. Enemy concentrated fire ineffective. Admiral, they cannot hit what they cannot perceive in their dimension. Return fire, Admiral Sullivan ordered. Target their flagship. The Devourer of Worlds, Vekval's massive command ship, found itself in the crosshairs of 3 quantum disruptor beams. The alien vessel was the size of a small city, covered in tentacles and organic weapons that pulsed with malevolent life. The beams hit the flagship simultaneously, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship began to fade, like a photograph left in the sun. Its massive bulk became translucent, then transparent, then gone. War Commander Vekval and his entire crew were erased from existence in less than a heartbeat. The greatest warship in the Zephyrian fleet simply ceased to be. The remaining alien vessels tried to retreat, but the human ships were faster. They moved through folded space, appearing behind the fleeing Zephyrians and cutting off their escape routes. It was not a battle anymore. It was an execution. Weapons Officer Sandra Lewis coordinated the final assault from her station on the Retribution. Target the engines first, she instructed the fleet. Disable them, then finish them off. The quantum disruptors reached out again and again, each being carefully aimed to cause maximum damage. The Zephyrian ships found themselves crippled and helpless, floating in space as the human fleet moved in for the kill. On Kepler Station, Admiral Martinez received a transmission from Admiral Sullivan. Admiral, this is Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Fleet. Kepler Station is now under our protection. Medical teams are standing by to assist your wounded. Admiral Sullivan, Martinez replied, still struggling to believe what she was seeing. Where did you come from? How did you build ships like these? The short answer is that Earth has been preparing for this war for 20 years, Sullivan replied. We knew the Zephyrians were coming, and we used that time to level the playing field. Dr. Walsh listened to the conversation from his damaged science bay. Admiral, if I may ask, what other species know about this technology? There was a pause before Sullivan answered. As of today, the entire galaxy knows. We have been monitoring alien communications. News of this battle is already spreading to every corner of known space. The last Zephyrian ship died in a flash of quantum fire, its biomechanical hull dissolved at the molecular level. In less than 10 minutes, a fleet of over 300 warships had been reduced to nothing. The space around Kepler Station was silent except for the hum of the human ship's exotic engines. The Terran Defense Fleet hung in formation like a constellation of new stars, their hulls shimmering with otherworldly energy. Captain Davis opened a channel to the surviving personnel from Kepler Station. All human personnel, this is Captain. Davis, you have fought with honor and courage. Your sacrifice bought time for the civilians to escape, and your bravery will be remembered. Lieutenant Brooks was picked up by a rescue shuttle from one of the Terran ships. As she was brought aboard, she looked around at the technology that surrounded her. The corridors seemed to extend into dimensions her eyes could not follow, and the walls hummed with power that made her skin tingle. "Welcome aboard the UEF Retribution," her rescuer said. "You are about to see what humanity has really been up to for the past 20 years. Admiral Sullivan broadcast a message to the entire galaxy on all frequencies. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Fleet. Today, the Zephyrian Collective learned that humanity is no longer the weak prey they thought we were. Let this serve as a warning to any species that threatens human space. We are no longer hiding." The message was received on 1,000 worlds by 100 different alien species. Many of them had been secretly supporting the Zephyrian invasion, thinking that humanity would be easily defeated. Now they scrambled to send diplomatic messages to Earth. Suddenly very interested in peace treaties, Dr. Turner stood in his laboratory aboard the Retribution and smiled with satisfaction. The quantum field generators had performed flawlessly. The dimensional phase technology had worked exactly as predicted. 20 years of hiding in secret research facilities had finally paid off. "Doctor," one of his assistants said, "we are receiving requests for information from every major power in the galaxy. They all want to know how we—" The final battle lasted exactly 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Admiral Kate Sullivan counted every second as her fleet demonstrated the true meaning of overwhelming force. What the Zephyrians had thought would be their greatest victory became their worst nightmare. "All ships engage at will," Sullivan ordered from the bridge of the UEF Retribution. "Show them what 20 years of preparation looks like." The quantum disruptor weapons fired in perfect coordination. Each beam was aimed with computer precision, targeting multiple Zephyrian ships at once. The alien fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, began to vanish from existence. Captain Carl Davis watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "Enemy fleet strength dropping rapidly, Admiral. They are down to 200 ships, 150 ... 100. The Zephyrian vessels tried desperately to fight back, but their weapons could not touch the human ships. The Terran defense fleet existed in multiple dimensions, phasing in and out of normal space faster than the aliens could track them. War Commander Thekval, in his final moments aboard the dying Devourer of Worlds, sent one last message to his home fleet. "The humans... they are not what we thought. They have been hiding their true power. Warn the collective. Warn everyone." The message was cut short as quantum disruptor beams converged on his massive flagship, the ship that had conquered 40 worlds and destroyed countless enemies simply ceased to exist. Thekval and his crew were erased from reality in an instant. Lieutenant Amy Brooks, now aboard a rescue shuttle, watched through the viewport as the alien fleet disappeared. "How is this possible?" she asked the rescue team. "Those ships were huge. Where did they go?" "Quantum disruption," explained the shuttle pilot, a young man named Rick Santos. "The weapons break down the bonds between atoms. The ships do not explode. They just stop being ships and become empty space instead." Dr. Kevin Walsh, also rescued from the dying Kepler station, studied the readings on his portable scanner. "Fascinating," he muttered. "The energy patterns suggest the weapons work at the subatomic level. They are literally unmaking matter." The mind shepherds, the psychic warriors that had been the Zephyrian secret weapon, found themselves helpless against the human fleet. Their mental powers could not touch ships that existed partially outside normal reality. One by one, their vessels were targeted and eliminated. The prey has claws. One of them transmitted to its dying comrades. They hide in shadows we cannot see. On the bridge of the Retribution, Weapons Officer Sandra Lewis coordinated the final phase of the battle. Target the remaining command ships first, she instructed her team. Cut off their communications and coordination. The quantum disruptors reached out like the fingers of death, touching each alien vessel with perfect accuracy. The biomechanical ships that had seemed so alive just minutes before became empty space, their organic components scattered across dimensions. Captain Morrison, who had been presumed dead when his fighter was crushed, was found alive in an escape pod by a Terran. Search team. I cannot believe what I am seeing, he said as he was brought aboard the UEF Victory. Where did these ships come from? Earth, replied Commander Lisa Park, the ship's first officer. We have been building them in secret shipyards beyond Pluto. The Zephyrians thought they were hunting sheep, but they found wolves instead. The battle was turning into a massacre, but Admiral Sullivan felt no mercy for the alien invaders. They had come to human space to commit genocide. They had attacked civilians and destroyed entire colonies. Now they were learning the price of their aggression. Enemy fleet down to 50 ships, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes reported from his tactical station. They are trying to retreat, but our ships are faster. The Terran vessels moved through. Folded space, appearing behind the fleeing Zephyrians and cutting off their escape routes. There would be no survivors to warn the collective about humanity's true capabilities. Dr. Nick Turner monitored the performance of his weapons from the science section. Every system was working perfectly. The quantum field generators were stable. The dimensional phase technology was flawless, and the targeting computers had not missed a single shot. 20 years of work, he said to his assistant, Dr. Maria Gonzalez. 20 years of hiding and building and planning. And it all comes down to 9 minutes of combat. The last Zephyrian ships died in flashes of quantum fire. Their biomechanical HULLs were dissolved to the molecular level, their crews erased from existence without a trace. In less than 10 minutes, a fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was reduced to nothing. All enemy contacts eliminated, Captain Davis reported. 0 human casualties. Mission accomplished. The space around Kepler Station was silent except for the exotic hum of the Terran ship's engines. The alien fleet that had seemed so unstoppable was gone, leaving only empty space and the shocked survivors of the human garrison. Admiral Martinez floated in the medical bay of the Retribution, her injuries being treated by technology that seemed like magic. Around her, the other survivors from Kepler Station were receiving care from advanced medical systems that could heal wounds in minutes. Admiral Sullivan, she said when the fleet commander visited the medical bay, I need to know, how long has Earth been preparing for this war? Sullivan sat down beside Martinez's medical bed. Since the first Zephyrian attack 23 years ago. We knew they were coming, and we used that time to prepare. The artifacts we found in our solar system gave us the technology we needed. Artifacts? Martinez asked. Ancient alien technology, hidden on Luna and in the asteroid belt. Dr. Turner and his team reverse-engineered it to create our fleet. The Zephyrians thought they were attacking a primitive species, but they walked into a trap that was decades in the making. Communications Officer Beth Carter was already back at work, sending reports to Earth from the Retribution's advanced communication systems. Command is not going to believe this, she said to herself as she transmitted the battle records. A 300-ship alien fleet destroyed in under 10 minutes with 0 human losses. The news was already spreading across the galaxy. Alien species that had been secretly supporting the Zephyrian invasion suddenly found themselves sending diplomatic messages to Earth. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. On the homeworld of the hegemony, an alliance of reptilian species that had been planning their own attack on human space. The High Council met in emergency session. "The humans have been hiding their true strength," the Supreme Chancellor said with fear in his voice. "Our invasion fleet would be slaughtered." Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Species that had seen humanity as weak prey now realized they had been watching sleeping giants. The age of human weakness was over. Dr. Turner stood on the observation deck of the Retribution and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Collective was learning that their greatest fleet had been destroyed. Soon they would send more ships, and the Terran Defense Fleet would be waiting. "Doctor," his assistant called from across the room, "we are receiving priority transmission from Earth. Project Genesis is requesting immediate deployment." Turner smiled. Genesis was the next phase of human expansion, a fleet of ships even more advanced than the ones that had just won this battle. "Tell them to proceed with launch. The galaxy is about to learn that this was just the beginning." Admiral Sullivan gave orders to her fleet. "All ships set course for Zephyrian space. We have more fleets to destroy and a message to deliver. Humanity is no longer hiding." The Terran Defense Fleet began to move, their hulls shifting through dimensions as they prepared to fold space. They had 20 more alien fleets to eliminate, and the enemy would not be expecting them. As they departed, Lieutenant Brooks looked back at the wreckage of Kepler Station. The station was broken, but its sacrifice had meaning. The civilians had escaped, and the galaxy had seen humanity's true strength. "We held the line," she whispered. "We held it long enough." Captain Morrison, now aboard the UEF Victory, received new orders from Admiral Sullivan. "Captain, you and your surviving pilots are being transferred to our fighter squadrons. We have newer ships and better weapons, and we need experienced pilots to use them." Morrison looked at the sleek fighters in the Victory's hangar bay. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, their hulls shimmering with the same multi-dimensional technology as the capital ships. "When do we start training?" "Now," Commander Park replied. "The war is just beginning, and humanity has a lot of catching up to do. The galaxy would never be the same. For 1,000 years, the strong had preyed upon the weak, and humanity had seemed like the weakest of all. But appearances could be deceiving, and the hunters had become the hunted dot in the depths of space. Automated beacons began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple but clear. Humanity is no longer your prey. We are your predators. Choose your next move carefully. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would reshape the galaxy forever.